The father went to the basement to fetch potatoes, but he did not return. His wife followed to check on him, but she didn't return either. The son also went, but he didn't come back either. Even the grandmother went and didn't return. The terrifying story of the Russian family. You won't believe the events of the story. It contains an important lesson for everyone. Welcome to our channel, Get Educated in Minute. In August 2013, in a small house in the Russian countryside, an 8-year-old girl sat at the kitchen table drawing a horse. Maria was obsessed with horses and loved them dearly. Next to her was her 42-year-old father, Michael, cutting onions with tears streaming down his face. He jokingly approached Maria crying, which made her laugh. When he put the onions in the oil, he realized he forgot the main ingredient for his meal. He called out to his wife and asked, "Do we have potatoes?" His wife replied, "Yes, we have plenty in the basement, but they're a bit old." The father went to the basement to get the potatoes, but he took too long to return, and the onions started burning. The grandmother quickly intervened, extinguished the fire, and opened the windows. The mother, Anastasia, arrived in anger at her husband's mistake and shouted, "Michael, come and see what you've done. Only you can clean the pan now." Michael didn't respond, so Anastasia went to the basement to confront him. Meanwhile, the grandmother cleaned the pan and prepared fresh onions. After 5 minutes, Maria and her family started to wonder why they hadn't returned yet. They stared at the basement door, waiting for them to come back, but no one did. The grandmother decided to go to the basement to check on them. As she passed through the living room where Maria's brother Georgie was playing video games, she called out, "Where are you? Are you okay?" No one answered, and she repeated her call. Georgie, annoyed by the situation, replied, "Instead of calling out, why don't we go down to the basement and check on them?" He went down to the basement, saw his parents, and shouted at them, "Why are you down here? When will dinner be ready?" Then he descended the stairs and closed the door behind him. At this point, the grandmother and Maria returned to the kitchen and resumed their work. After some time, none of them returned. This time, the grandmother didn't close the door behind her and left it open. Maria heard her grandmother's footsteps descending the stairs to the basement. At some point, she heard a strange sound coming from her grandmother, followed by silence. Maria was now terrified, and the neighbor had not arrived yet. Unable to wait, Maria rushed to the basement, only to find it dark. Afraid to call out to them, she decided to go downstairs herself. Instead of waiting for the neighbor to arrive, the grandmother couldn't wait and rushed to the basement. Maria waited for her grandmother, but she didn't return either. This time, the grandmother didn't close the door behind her, and Maria heard her grandmother's footsteps descending the stairs to the basement. At some point, she heard a strange sound coming from her grandmother, followed by silence. At that moment, the neighbor, who had knocked on the door but received no response, entered the house. He heard crying coming from the basement, so he went there and couldn't believe what he saw. He found Maria sitting, crying, surrounded by her scattered family members. The neighbor, terrified, picked up Maria and quickly carried her out of the house. He shouted to the other neighbors that the entire family had gone down to the basement and hadn't returned. What do you think of this sad story? An entire family perished because of potatoes. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel.